Hello everyone, I am Leroy. It's Magnificent Monday. Today we're learning about stressors and instant messaging. This is based on a paper. The paper is called Too Close and Too Crowded. It is from a university out of the Republic of Korea, which is commonly known as South Korea to many of us. And for the sake of convenience, I'll just be referring to the first author, Shin, and I won't refer to the other ones. So I say Shin, just mean I know all the authors that are working on it. So when I should say Shin, just understand I'm referencing all the authors and not just saying that they did it by themselves. And this was published in Kai. So first things first, for those of you who aren't too familiar with the Republic of Korea, Kakao is a very popular messaging app. Kakao Talk Line is the full name, and it is the #1 app in the Republic of Korea. This is on the screen. You have 53 million active users, 47 million of them are in the Republic of Korea, and comparatively, WhatsApp is the largest in the United States. So in the United States, we have 75 million users for WhatsApp, but the USA population is 332 million roughly, versus 52 million in the Republic of Korea. So the USA, WhatsApp is about 23% of the population, which is very small, opposed to the Republic of Korea, where nearly 90, some of the other estimates I saw was 91, 92% use Kakao. So this is a very widespread app. It's, for many people, the main way of communication. Instead of texting people, they use Kakao instant messaging, and it's, permeated quite a lot of different parts of life. I'll give you an example of how common this is. When COVID first broke out, I was in the Republic of Korea at the time, and once the stay in place orders were done and you could actually go eat at restaurants again, you would sign into the restaurant when you got there. When you put what time you got there, you'd put your name, you'd put your Kakao handle. That's how they would contact you if, while you were there, someone that was also there at that time tested positive for COVID, is they would message you on Kakao. So it was an expectation that you'd have a Kakao and a Kakao handle so that they could contact you for health concerns. So again, that's just how prevalent it is. 90% of people use it, so it's pretty common. It's assumed you would have one, and that's kind of the norm there. All right, moving on. So the next big thing we kind of need to talk about so you can understand where this paper is coming from is the idea of proxemics. So proxemics is the role and use of space in communication. So for example, people feel too stressed, or people begin to feel stressed when you are too close to them. So if I just met you, we don't know each other at all, and I'm standing right up on you, like, really, really close to you, it'd be a bit creepy, right? That'd be a bit socially unacceptable. If we were maybe really close friends, or, significant other kind of situation, we were dating or something along that lines, he's standing in your space or really close to you wouldn't be that strange. But for someone you don't know, or someone that you really don't know that well, it's a bit odd. It can kind of, make you feel uncomfortable, cause unneeded stress. And the next one is too many people. So obviously, a lot of people don't like to go to large parties. A lot of people don't like larger classes in schools. They don't like all these people. A lot of people have a fear of public speaking. In fact, I think public speaking is like the second most common fear, if I'm not mistaken. This idea of a lot of people seeing me, a lot of people hearing me, is a real stressor to a lot of people. And then for the purposes of this paper, they're using this idea, which originally comes from anthropology, and they're using it to kind of explain some of the phenomenon that we are seeing in the digital space. So from here on out, I am going to use the sub-themes that the author, Shin, created. These on the screen now are quotes from various people that they used a focus group for. They asked them questions, and these were some of the answers they got. Instead of just reading these out, I have kind of paraphrased versions of each point that I'm going to go through on my notes right here. So put this so I'm facing you all. So for strangers in dwellings, right? So this idea that people that you don't know are in your space, right? We mentioned this a moment ago of, you don't know me very well. I'm really up close to you. I'm in your bubble. I'm in your space. And that would cause stress. So how does that equate to a digital space? Well, in a digital space, for example, having someone that you don't really know very well, or maybe someone that you work with, maybe someone, as that music instructor said, it's someone you teach's parent, right? Like, you don't even really know the mother. You just work with the child to teach it music lessons. And then you have this mother messaging you on Kakao, which is, although very common, is a much more personal way of doing it. I think the easiest way to make it make sense for people that, would come and be watching like live streams is like Discord. Like, imagine that you got paid by somebody to do a service and they message you a private message on Discord, and you couldn't stop them from messaging you. You couldn't stop them from knowing your Discord information, and they could see your profile, they could see your statuses you have on Discord, things like that. That would be a bit weird. It'd feel like a bit of a violation of privacy. You wouldn't like that this person that you really don't know very well is seeing your personal profile, your personal account, and how you interact with your friends. So in the example of the music teacher they mentioned, they prefer text messaging. Now, the next thing is this idea that strangers can message them at any time, and it's difficult to block them. It's not only can anyone message you, but anyone can message you, see your profile, it's public. As soon as they do message you, they are added as your friend. The only option you have to stop them from messaging you is blocking them. So if it's, again, a situation like that music teacher, where it's someone that you know and would need to contact you because you work with them, but it's still inappropriate for them to communicate with you in that way, like, do you block them? I don't know. That could make it where they're less likely to hire you in the future. Oh, I forgot to turn on my light. There we go. And obviously that's not ideal either. Additionally, you can't have multiple accounts. So if you are having to use your Kakao for both your personal use and for your business, you have to be really careful what you put on there because it's public. Anyone can see it. Anyone could message you. Anyone that would have your phone number could find you easily, or your full name. So that's a bit of a problem. Not having that ability to distinguish between your public account and your private account, or your personal account and your business account, can lead to a lot of awkward and unideal situations. The next thing about strangers dwelling is these updates, right? So the graduate student here mentions that they meet someone in one of their classes. They don't know them very well, but maybe they're on a group project or something with them, and they're getting messaged, and they feel like they should reply because as soon as they open that message, that person gets a read receipt. So that person knows that they've received the communication, but you might not know them very well. Maybe it's someone, just a classmate, asking you for help in class, and you don't even talk to them, right? That's a bit weird. You probably wouldn't want them to know you even got the message, and they have this feeling or pressure almost to respond due to the read receipts, as well as them being able to see their profile and everything. So the other thing is you can't delete your friends. You only can block them. So you can hide people, you can block people, and that's it. If someone messages you randomly, you can't just delete them. If you block them, you don't know. Maybe you need to work with them in a future project. You don't know. Maybe it's, someone that you might need to do business with again. And kind of blocking them from being able to communicate with all could be pretty severe and unnecessary in a lot of cases. So it's not ideal. So you're not really incentivized to keep these people out. You almost have to kind of let these people in your space, even though you don't feel comfortable with them being at that familiarity with you yet. So that's obviously not super good, and that can kind of lead to unnecessary stress. Another thing is inappropriate friend recommendations, or knowing that if you can see someone be a recommended friend to you, they probably can see you listed as a recommended friend for them. And that's just, it can be a bit weird, lead to some awkward situations. Maybe it's someone that you don't get along with. Maybe it's someone you really don't like. Maybe it's a former person that you worked with that you weren't very cordial with, or they weren't very cordial with you. It could be an ex that maybe you had a really mess up breakup with, or maybe your ex cheated on you with somebody, and the person they cheated on you with is what shows up there. And again, if it shows up, for you, you realize that they probably can see your profile even though you've never messaged them, never talked to them, because it's showing up to them as a recommended friend. And that's not really ideal for either, and that can kind of freak people out, maybe give them some unwanted stress. Next thing is few friends. So people that tend to be more introverted or tend to prefer a smaller friend group, like to have a few people they want to talk to. And these features in Kakao of forcing people to have friends just from messaging once and not being able to easily just remove somebody or delete somebody from your friends list without having to fully block them, which we've discussed why that would be a bad idea in multiple cases. But it can make it feel like there's just a bunch of people you really don't want having access to things that you don't want them to. And again, we want to try and make these apps not cause unnecessary stress. We want them to make people want to use them, right? So that's another example of something bad. And we've mentioned this a few times already, but I haven't stated this part of it explicitly. But due to the nature of the public profiles and the pictures and the statuses, anyone can know if you're online, on your phone, on your computer, wherever you have an account installed. They can see that you read messages and they can see that you're online. So that can lead to awkward situations where people maybe that you don't want to talk to right now, maybe it's after hours at your work and someone messaged you for a contract, or as the teacher mentioned, the music instructor mentioned, that mothers of the students might message them and maybe they're on their off time, maybe they're trying to go out with their friends and it's later in the evening and they're on there to communicate with their friends and schedule a time to go to the bar or the club or something. And this, random mother can see that they're online and that they read the message that she sent at like 7 or 8 at night, which again, you're not working then. It's kind of an unrealistic expectation for you to be accessible at all times, but they can see that information and they don't like that. Also, anyone can see your picture, and anyone that's a friend with you will get a notification when you change your status or picture. And we'll get into kind of that in the later sections. So the next section is conversations in a closed room. So we're still in the too close, people being too close theme. Just for those of you who came in before I explained that, too close, and this theme is for digital spaces, and it's tied to the anthropology kind of mindset of it. So if I'm standing too close to you and I don't know you very well, that would be kind of awkward if I'm in your personal space and you don't know me. So we're kind of using that as the example of too close and using digital spaces as an analog for virtual chat rooms for instant messaging. So conversations in a closed room. So again, these are accounts from people from a focus group, and I've kind of condensed what they've said, and I have a few bullet points so we don't have to read through all of these, but feel free to read these while I'm going through it. So people will have to come up with creative ways to stop getting read receipts. I think, yeah, it's at the bottom there. Someone had to use a airplane mode so that they can check messages without the other person being able to see that they got the message and know that they read the message. Because they almost feel trapped. Like they feel these people are coming into their space. They feel like they are saying something to them, and they have no outs. They can't pretend like they didn't get the message because there's a read receipt. They can't pretend like they're not there, like they're not home, because the person can see that they're online. And it feels like they're already in your space. They're already there. Ooh, I can't read Cyrillic, brother. But thank you for sending a message. Everyone also can listen to every conversation. So in group chats, so in more of a group chat situation, right? Anyone can send a message to anyone. Anyone can invite anyone to a group chat. And every time someone messages, everyone gets it, regardless if it's relevant to you or not. And with the person left the room message that comes up if you tried to leave the room, it makes it feel like you are almost shunned in a way for leaving, because your coworkers or your friends will see that you left the room, and that could lead to some, negative consequences. So people feel almost trapped. They almost feel like they can't leave because of the social faux pas that might be caused by it, and that causes them to kind of freak out and to have stress as well. Brother, I can't read what you're putting in the chat, man. I'm sorry. Additionally, irrelevant messages cause stress. So you're getting all these notifications, your phone's blowing up constantly, and you don't know if it's relevant to you, but additionally, it could be relevant to you, like the music teacher that we keep going back to. It's important information that's being sent out to maybe the essay, right, the writing teachers, and you never know if what's being sent to the group chat is relevant to you or not. So you feel the need to go through the entire conversation chains. You feel the need to keep looking, and that you're afraid you'll miss something of importance that you need to respond to, especially when you are doing it for work additionally. And like I said, 90% of people use this, so it's very common for work. In fact, I was in, I think, 6 group chats when I worked in South Korea, and when is it relevant to you or not is a problem. And I agree with that. It's just really annoying to have to go through all of it. All right, so we covered conversations in the closed room. We're going to move on to the next topic. The next topic is shared status. We've mentioned this briefly. So the shared status. Oh, sorry, no, it's okay, buddy. I understand there's a bit of a language barrier, but thanks for stopping by regardless. All right, so shared status, we're going to go over that. We kind of mentioned that a few times already, but people get real-time feedback if you are online, you're away, or you're typing. I think there's a really good example here. Oh, yes, for this lady here talking about going to bathe her baby. Now, the English for these are a bit wonky because it's originally it was spoken in Korean and then probably just typed in Hangul and then translated to English for the purposes of this paper that got written up and submitted to a English article. But she's talking about here that basically, like, every time she has to go take time to wash her baby or take care of her child, she feels the need to post online an away message, and it's almost like she feels ashamed or like that she's doing something wrong by taking the time to take care of her child, which obviously isn't the case. She's doing the right thing. She's trying to be a good mother. She's trying to take care of her child. But due to how connected everyone is, and due to how, public all this information is, and how, her bosses, her friends, everyone can see this stuff, it affects her and causes unwanted stress to her. So the next thing is people feeling watched, right? Because anyone can see it. Again, they feel like anyone can come in. They can come into their space. They can look in through the glass, almost like they're a zoo animal. Tap on the glass, and it's kind of freaky. It kind of weirds them out. It's causing the stress. Again, the mother example, I think she put it very well. And I think she really got her point across very well on that point. So we'll just keep going on. Additionally, whenever you see a message being typed, you get a little dots in the cacao. And obviously that makes you feel like you need to type something quickly, because if you take too long to type the message, then they're going to expect something very eloquent, very well thought out. But maybe you're just on your phone, right? Maybe you're on your lunch break. Maybe you're at home and you're using your phone to respond to this message. It's not even your work hours, right? So you're going above and beyond. You're taking time, your personal time, to send a message. And people are maybe on their computer still at work. Maybe they work a different shift, the night shift, or maybe you work the night shift and they work the day shift, etc. They can respond much quicker than you on a keyboard than you could texting on your phone. And you feel kind of stressed because maybe they're responding or giving you additional information. You have to go back and change your message, your original message. All that's less than ideal. We mentioned this before under Strangers in the Dwelling, but every time you post a new profile picture, it sends a notification to everyone on your friends list. We've already mentioned how anyone that ever messaged you ever gets on your friends list. Anyone that has your phone number saved into their phone, I don't think I've mentioned that one yet, gets added to your friends list. So people that you maybe have contacted once, like maybe you called a guy that fixes transmissions one time, and now magically, because Kakal's default settings adds everyone that's in your contacts, your phone contacts, to your Kakao, you have them as a friend in Kakao, and it creates this weird situation where maybe you went out with some friends and you dressed nice and you felt nice, right? You dressed nice, you felt nice, and you posted a picture of yourself that you thought was nice on your profile, public profile, and now your boss is getting it. You know what I mean? Maybe you weren't dressed appropriate for work, but you don't have the option to have a personal account and a business account. So that's, like I said, not ideal. This one is, I really don't like this one personally. This is the one that kind of creeped me out the most, and I'd totally forgotten about until I was reading this paper. But last seen online messages. So going back to the graduate student example, right? Some weird kid in your class messages you. You don't know them. You never talked to them. They message you maybe something about a homework. I seem for help on a homework. They get a read receipt. Okay, whatever. You don't message back. Not only do they get a read receipt, they can see the last time you've been on. It will say last seen, and then it'll give them a time, like hour and a minute mark. So they know if you're online, and they know if you're not online, and when you got offline. So if you read it, then you were on later, they know that. And that's, you know, a bit creepy, a bit of a, you know, I don't know, maybe a not really what you want. It gets back into anyone can kind of look into your space, see what you're doing. It's creepy. It's a violation of privacy. This one I thought was really funny. I don't think we have a personal antidote for this one on the screen. No, I don't think there was a personal antidote given for this one. But it's about a couple fighting, and basically the girlfriend was like, I don't mind having read receipts on for my boyfriend, except when I'm mad at them. And then I purposely use airplane mode in other ways so that they don't get it. So, you know, when you're fighting your significant other is just a funny example of not wanting people to see, you know, your last scene or your read receipts. But as you can imagine, when you're mad at someone that you already are pretty close to and kind of trust, how that would be really inappropriate if it's someone that you don't know maybe at all, or someone that you've had a really bad experience with in the past. So we're going to move on to Too Crowded. Again, we're kind of using this idea of proxemics, or this idea of too many people inside your personal space, but we're just equating it to the digital space with instant messaging, specifically Kakao Talkline, which is a very popular instant messenger in the Republic of Korea. South Korea, as is commonly known, and about 90% of the population use it. So it is all-encompassing, very common part of life. So even if you typically don't use instant messengers, it's really hard to get away from it. I'm going to take a sip of water and then we'll jump into this one. All right, so crowds in a dwelling place. Again, these are testimonials from people from the focus group. I have kind of summarized what they've put down into some talking points just to make it easier for me. And again, these talking points, or these are translated from Korean, Hangul specifically, which is the written language. So it's not perfect. The grammar's all over the place. I'm not sure what they use to translate these things, but these are copy and pasted straight from the paper. So the first person is more shy. They don't have many friends, and they don't like having to have all these people on their friends list because they don't really communicate with a lot of people consistently, but they've given up on trying to regulate who's on their friends list just because of how common people are added. Even when there are people that you don't necessarily want, don't necessarily like, they just kind of get shoved onto your list, and you know, it is what it is. Like we've said, the auto friend functionality, every time you message someone, they automatically become your friend. even if you don't want them to. There's recommended friends, they can just add you, even if you don't want them to. If you have someone saved in your phone for any reason, they will automatically get added to, even though if you don't want them to. This just creates a gigantic friends list very rapidly. I think in the paper it said that quite a few people had over 100 friends listed on their list, so it can be very difficult to find the people you actually want to communicate with. And the lower end of the people in the focus group had 50 or more. So it was pretty normal to have around 100. 50 was the lower end, and having 50 contacts could be quite a lot, quite unwieldy, quite unmanageable. And then you can only imagine how many notifications you're getting every time someone changes their status, how many times anyone changes their profile picture. If you have at least 50 of them, that's a lot of people. Let alone, your group chats and the messages that are actually meant for you. So a way some people in South Korea have got around this is they've just tried to move conversations to other platforms, other applications from Kakao, to something less common, less useful. And for example, one person was trying to get all their really close friends to use a different one, which is probably the way I would do it personally, is I would probably try and make it where all my really close friends use like WhatsApp or some other equivalent. WeChat's another good one, or whatever messaging app. And then that way, because Kakao's become so prevalent in the culture and everything there, I mean, you're kind of stuck using Kakao for your business one. So I would move your personal account to something else. Discord is a really common one in the United States. Or people try to switch it to for their business ones. I know a common one that we use for work are things like Slack, things like Teams, things like Zoom are pretty commonly used more from the business side. But again, even if you try to make it where all your business people are only on Teams and anyone can just add you for any reason, it's still super easy for people to get in contact with you, even if that's not your business account. And again, you can't have multiple accounts, so there's not really too much you can do about it. The military surgeon here also has a really good point about multi-rooms. So you'll have a room that has this person's in the military, so I'm just going to use a military example. Say you have you work at a company, right? A company, and you'll have a platoon chat, right? Surgeon probably is in headquarters, so he'll probably be in like the medic section of headquarters. We'll have a headquarters company chat. Probably be in a battalion chat. He might even be in a brigade chat, because if he's a surgeon, he's probably the only surgeon they have in a brigade. So very easily they'll have 4 to 5 chats just for the same information that will just exclude certain groups. So he might even have a squad, and it's just like, okay, a lot of the times being the military surgeon, he's probably pretty high rank. Being a surgeon's a pretty big deal. You usually get paid pretty well for being a surgeon. So they might be in all these chats because they're higher up, and then they have the same information being posted to them 5 different times, and then they probably have to send it to their people that work with them, their assistants or nurses, or I don't know, whatever works with the surgeon. So you can very quickly get spammed with a lot of the same information over and over again, and you don't want to mute these conversations because, maybe it's a situation where it's your people, right? Your nurses are asking you a follow-up question. Okay, fair play. Maybe it's a company thing, right? Where they're saying, oh, we have this thing going on Saturday, and the company people are like, oh, we have to help set up for it. So they have to be there a different time, right? And you can see how quickly you can get just hundreds of notifications. A lot of them like to do things like, oh, you have to acknowledge this. Like, as soon as you get the message, you have to acknowledge it. So you literally will have to type in like received, or I got it, or something like that. And as you could imagine, that very quickly shoots the number of notifications you get up a ton. Everyone's having to say received because that's like the culture there. They want to make sure you got the message, even though there's read receipts. That's not enough for them. They want to make sure you got it, so they make you message, and it's just too much. It's way too much. Which gets us to our next section: fragmented and overflowing messages, right? Okay. So the fragmented part refers to the fact that because it's instant messaging, and unlike text messaging, which used to have a cost, most people have unlimited text messaging and as an option for a plan. but there are many people that still choose to pay per text message or have like an allotment of text messages before they have to start paying. So they're less, I guess, willy-nilly. They're less likely just to shotgun tons and tons and tons of instant messages out. They're much less likely to send out a ton of text messages because there's a financial cost associated with it. Unlike instant messages where people will just blast them, and send emojis, reactions, things like that, and that just causes you to get a ton of messages, a ton of overflow, making your space seem really crowded. Additionally, you can't mark messages as important, so you never really know if it's something you should worry about, something you shouldn't worry about. There's no way for the sender to be like, hey, this matters to you, or it does not matter to you. It's just a stream of information constantly at all times. And again, you might be worried that you missed something that is relevant to you or that's actually really important, but you really have no way of telling if it is or not. You can only choose to mute that conversation or not mute that conversation. So, if something important shows up in a conversation, it's something, especially something related to work or family, you're not going to want to miss that. So you kind of get stuck with a ton of notifications. We talked about the no cost. Talked about the reactions. I think this person here on the first one on the page talks about New Year's, talks about how it's just become a situation where their family members just send a photo and like maybe like a short little message or maybe just like even an emoji, and how that like is become meaningless. It's like getting a postcard in the mail. Like they don't ever like really have a deeper conversation, and it's almost makes them feel kind of like lonely because they want to talk deeply with their friends and family, the people they care about. Instead, they're just getting these like photos with like fireworks in the background or like these quick family shots instead of having more of a conversation. And they don't like that. They literally don't like just being in a group chat with a bunch of photos being sent out and like no real discourse or conversation or one-on-one interaction. And yeah, I can see why that would be a bummer, really, really kind of suck and be sad. Yeah, we talked about how the messages, the constant stream of information makes them feel crowded, feels like there are, a tons of conversations going on, makes them feel suffocated almost because there's like a bunch of people in their digital space, their personal space, they have a lot to keep up with, and that can cause unnecessary stress. The negative feeling associated with seeing unread messages, seeing the little red dot, seeing the little thing, the notification at the top of your screen, maybe you're listening to your phone vibrate or the cacao noise, all those things could cause a stress response. I know personally that there was an individual that I was working with that was from Korea, and they had cacao on their phone with the default little notification noise, and when it went off, and it was the first time I had heard it in like 2 or 3 years, I still had a stress response. I still was like, what was that? Like almost like I had like PTSD or something from my experience in Korea. It was wild. I'd not heard it in such a long time, and to have that like almost like immediate stress response from hearing it, I think was a bit of a wake up call to me. And then seeing this paper that was written on it, I thought was really apt. So I thought, I would share it with you all. Additionally, users don't feel like they can maintain ownership of their own space because they don't initiate their own spaces, because anyone can add them to things, anyone can do anything to make different groups of different people. Maybe you have a group of just like your friends from one area, all your friends, different combinations of friends, endless. You have 50 friends, and you can only imagine how many different permutations there would be of the different combinations of those friend groups. You can see very quickly how it gets crowded and overflowing, and you don't really have initiative to seize these places or create these spaces. You're kind of just added. You feel almost socially obligated to stay in them because they get a message if you leave, and none of that's ideal, right? None of that's ideal. You don't want to feel like that. So the next bit, never-ending notifications. Oh, I did that a little early. That's what I was just talking about. I was on the wrong slide. All right, we'll give you a minute to look over these if you care. I doubt you care that much. I'll just glance over these. I haven't read them in a minute. Yeah, badges, the little red icons, little numbers over it, that causing people to feel stressed. The little red pointy thing. Oh, right. So additionally, you get notifications not just from messages. Not just from status updates, not just from profile pictures, but guess what? Kakao also sends notifications. Yeah, woo, more notifications. Yeah, they'll do deals because Kakao's a huge company over there. They have things like mascots. They'll do things like, stuffed animals with their various emojis, TV, taxi deals, TV deals, haircut deals, whatever. Maybe they added a new emoji. Maybe they added an animation to a pre-existing emoji. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous the amount of notifications not only you get from everyone else, but from Kakao itself. And then you can't even unsubscribe. You can't just be like, oh, well, I don't own TVs. I'm not really interested in the TV ones. Nope, you get all of them, and you're going to like it. There's nothing you can do about it. So this grad student here talks about how annoying that is. All right, improvements. So I've bitched and complained and used this data about Kakao for long enough. How do we improve it? How do we make things better? Okay, so forward effort, right? What do I mean by forward effort? So forward effort is normally, if I want to interact with you, I have to come up to you, I have to walk up to you, I have to talk to you, I have to choose to interact with you, I have to choose to turn on this live stream, I have to choose to post a message in the chat. You choose to initiate conversation, to initiate communication with me, or you choose not to, right? But due to the way these features work, you can't choose to follow me. You just imagine that like you're scrolling through Twitch and any single person that appears on your little screen, or you're scrolling through YouTube and every single little video that appears in your recommended, you automatically get subscribed to, you automatically get followed to. And that would be incredibly annoying. And then when you click on your subscriptions, even though it's someone that you've never even watched a video from, maybe you clicked on a video once, it automatically subscribes you, and it's clogging up your subscription feed, and you'd have to go through and try to unsubscribe from all of them. That's what they mean by backwards effort. People have to, instead of taking the forward effort to get to know people and to choose to interact with people, they're having to take a backward effort of putting up blockers and stopping people from interacting with them when they don't want to, and that's not ideal. That causes, not what you want from a social app, from an instant messaging app. You don't want people to recoil. You want people to go and interact. An example of this is people will start adding numbers and or A to the beginning of their people they actually want to talk to on their friends list to try and put them higher up in the queue, just to make it a little easier for them to find them. All right, various distances. Various distances, what do I mean by various distances? Well, currently you see all notifications or none of the notifications per chat, right? Various distances would mean, hey, like I'm close friends with you, I want to get all the notifications. Hey, I don't really know you that much, I only want notifications that are relevant to me, so you can kind of take a step back and, etc., etc. So how would you implement this in a app, right? Because we're not doing an app. What is this about? Okay, well, this is about, we are talking about Kakao and instant messaging, how it stresses people out, and what we can do to try and improve it now. We're talking about the improvements. You missed the complaints in the background, sorry. But basically, for various distance, we're talking about instant messaging apps. This one lets anyone message you. It's tied to your real name. It's tied to your phone number. It's really easy for people to get access to you, which isn't ideal. We're talking about the second bullet point here, various distances. So basically, we're to compare this to like real life or to Twitch or YouTube, right? Let's just say it's a live stream, right? Imagine I could just message you once on YouTube, and I would be able to see everything. Like I'd be able to see your real name, your phone number. I would be able to see all that information. I would be able to add you to group chats without your permission. Maybe you would see every single chat message that ever comes up on one of my live streams would get sent to your phone as a notification, right? That would be pretty annoying. You don't even know me. You just clicked on a random live stream. You don't want every notification ever coming up to you. That would be super annoying, and I get that. But that's kind of what these people are living with. So instead, you would be able to have keywords, or for you guys, it's subscriptions, right? Follows. You can choose who you get notifications from. maybe you could set a keyword finder. So if it's going back to the music teacher example, if it includes the word music in the message, then, or all teachers, maybe the word all teachers or something like that, you would get it pushed through as a notification, but normally you wouldn't, and you wouldn't have to see it. Another way of doing that or implementing that would be to allow the senders to send out the notifications or choose to. So either they could have it where it's a silent notification, where it's something that isn't super important. So they can be like, okay, there's no notification for this message I'm sending out. It's information, but it's not worth bothering people for. Maybe schedule it. Maybe you know that that person's in a class right now, or maybe that person is in a meeting right now, and you could schedule it so that maybe like 5 minutes after they get out their meeting, that message gets sent, but you're not in that meeting, and you want to make sure that you put it there before you forget. And then the last one would be able to like basically tag people or to like assign groups and only to send it to certain groups. So you only want to send it to a certain category of teachers. You only want to send it to maybe students that are in a certain class, things like that. And provide satisfaction. What do I mean by provide satisfaction? Well, the paper suggests creating, they call it bundles of messages, but really it's threads. Very similar to old forums, threads where you would have a main topic and then you'd have replies. So just like in the comment section, you can have a main comment and then you have all the replies to the comments. Kind of something like that, grouping it by topic, grouping it by maybe the times they were posted, things like that. So you can very quickly see, hey, this thread is relevant to me, this bundle is relevant to me, or it's not relevant to me. And you can very quickly identify if it's something you should care about or something you shouldn't care about, so you can move on with your day. All right. What do you think? So we're going to talk about the larger implications now. For those of you that have questions, you can ask the questions and I'll do my best to answer them. But I think why is this important? Why do we care about people being stressed out for an instant messaging app that's in Korea? You know, like you're like, I'm not a Korean, I don't use Kakao. Why do I care? Well, I think these have a lot of implications for other things. I'm sure you have heard that there are multiple regulatory bodies that want to do things like tie your online identity to your real name, in the United States to your like social security number, so that you do anything online, it's tied to your real life name, right? Pretty creepy, pretty weird. We can see using Kakao as a good example of how when things are tied to you in that way, it can cause stress that maybe you hadn't thought of previously because you never experienced something like that previously. Another example would be if a thing became so accessible that, or so widely used that everyone had it. I think a good example of that maybe is like social media, like Facebook, right? All the kids were on Facebook, right? All the younger people were on Facebook. And then all their parents got on Facebook. And then their digital space, right, the little thing that they made kind of didn't become the little thing they made anymore. Their parents had access to it. Their parents were like texting them, or their grandparents were messaging them being like, yo, why are you posting pictures of you drinking? You're like 16, right? Things like that. And that caused all the young people to leave. And now all the young people are on TikTok, and TikTok's the current thing that the younger generation uses. And now it's really only the older generation, the boomers, that are still on Facebook. But other than those two bad cases where everyone's on some social media, or, you know, our real life identities are tied to it, you can kind of use some of these things and listen to it and adapt maybe how you communicate with people. If you know that fragmented messages, or like a lot of messages at one time, stresses people out, hey, maybe now that you know that, take your time. Take your time in your replies. Try to send one message, you know, one succinct message. A lot of applications, you can hold shift and enter to have multiple lines without it being different messages. So maybe consider something like that, or control enter. I don't know, it depends on what you're using. But consider doing that, having little blocks of text all as one message instead of having multiple messages, because that would cause notifications, could potentially lead to more stress. Additionally, you know, if you're going to respond to something, if it's a situation where it doesn't warrant a response, maybe don't. Or like for me, for example, when I get a group email or I get a group text message or I get a group instant message, I will direct message the person and respond to it instead of telling everybody, so I don't contribute to that overflow, right? So I don't know, just maybe think about these things, consider how they could impact you, even if you might not feel these stressors yourself, right? Maybe you are kind of used to that. Well, maybe other people aren't. And these are probably people you care about or that you would at least not want to freak out, right? So maybe let's put a little effort to try and make things a little bit better for people, because that's all we can do at the end of the day. We don't know what everyone's going through, but we can do our little bits to make their life a little easier. So that's it. That's all I have for this topic. So I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to post what the next topic is in the little chat here. And the next topic is we'll be going more on brand for the channel. And we're going to be talking about a character that I created. The character is for Pathfinder. And it is inspired by the goblins of the Warhammer Fantasy universe. So I'm going to talk about how I tied Warhammer Fantasy goblins, specifically the night goblins, because they're my favorite goblins, to the Pathfinder universe, and how I kind of made it almost one-to-one, pretty close, changed some names. Basically, everything's the same. That if you yourself wanted to try a Pathfinder game, you could just kind of steal this idea, and you could use it to make an orc or a goblin character that fits into the world really nicely and neatly if they're using the main setting. All right. I'm going to put you guys on camera while I play everything up. Ugh. All right, I don't know what I'm gonna do visually for this one. I don't have like a sleek PowerPoint made or anything like I did for this one, so I don't know. Do I just leave it on camera and just like talk? I mean, I guess I could just do that. We'll do a mix. I'll pull things up and I'll full screen it for you all when it's relevant. We'll do a mix. So I'll find a nice picture of some gobos to start with, and we'll chuck that on the screen, and we'll start with that. How does that sound? Oh, let me put it. Next topic. Good enough. All right, let's get a good picture of some night gobos. Oh, let's use this one. This is one I sent to my group for my character art, so we'll use this one. I have this photo already downloaded, so I can just make it full screen without the weird little box around it. This is it. Nope. Here we go. It's a little pixelated. A little pixelated, but she'll do. She'll do. All right. Oh, can I get rid of this thing at the top? That? No. No. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We'll leave the little controls at the top. It's fine. Okay. So, ooh, I can't see my notes. All right, it'll be fine. I'll just do it off the top of my dome. It'll be a lot more improvisational than the last thing. But I got invited to a Pathfinder 2 campaign. Now, I've never played Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I was a big fan of Pathfinder 1st Edition. In fact, I started Pathfinder 1st Edition. I think it was my first real tabletop RPG was Pathfinder 1st Edition, and I loved it. I loved Pathfinder 1st Edition. I played it with an incredible group of people that I really enjoyed my time with them, and that was probably, I don't know, I think we started playing probably 2014, 2015. So it's been a minute. It's been about 8 years, right? And I played with them for 2 years, and then, quite a lot of them moved away. So we switched to 5th edition because I was the DM now, and we had a lot of new players, and 5th edition is just a lot easier. It's a lot easier for new players. But Pathfinder lets you customize your character, and it gives you so much more freedom. For those of you who are totally unfamiliar with Pathfinder, Pathfinder is inspired by D&D 3.5 edition. Now, the first time I ever experienced Dungeons & Dragons was in 3.5 edition. I had the starter set for 3.5 edition. In fact, I have it in the other room. So if anyone wants to see it and post that in the chat, I will go get the box. It's just outside the door behind the camera. And 3.5 edition, I had the books, but I never really got to play it. Someone bought me the books because they, had plans of playing the game with me. Oh wait, is this how you full screen? Oh, God damn it! Why didn't I realize that sooner? Okay. No one posted in the chat before I noticed it, so we're good. They were gonna play it with me. I was younger. I was a kid at the time, and it just never happened. It just kind of fell through. So eventually, I left. I went to college for my undergrad, and oh God, what was that? Oh, my minis fell. I hit my desk too hard, and I I have a box of orcs that fell over, and it hit some of my minis, but it doesn't look like anything broke. Nothing broke. We're good. We're good. None of the minis broke. I probably should have balanced that box of orcs better. But, the pile of shame is hidden behind the desk for a reason, right? But basically, Pathfinder is a fantastic game if you want to play a much more crunchier version of 5th edition. Maybe you've played 5th edition for a little while, and you want to try a more traditional D&D experience, maybe an older system. 3.5 edition is good, but I think Pathfinder is better because Pathfinder 1st edition has an SRD that's available online. You can just Google, Pathfinder SRD. Most of the information you need to play the game is free. I think the only thing you pay for are the books. You want to have the physical copy or the campaigns. If you want to use a pre-existing campaign, you can buy the campaign. I think Paizo's marketing or business model, is a lot better. They do the same thing with 2nd edition, where most of the rules for 2nd edition are available on their SRD. You can just look them up and you can play them. There's way more classes. Each class is very feat-based, so for those of you who are only played 5th edition, instead of getting a feat every 4th level or an ability score, Pathfinder, you get a feat every level, basically, and there's different types of feats. There's feats based on your class, there's feats based on skills, and there's feats based on, just general stuff, which is what you would think of traditionally as a feat. It would be considered the general feats. So even when you're playing a class, you can customize that class in a lot of really different ways. So even having 2 of the same class in the party can still feel really unique and really different, which I really like about it. But that flexibility lets you take something stupid like the Warhammer goblins and be like, I want to play a Warhammer goblin and Pathfinder, and it's super possible. So boom, we're on topic finally. God, it took me a while to get there. So my character's name is Gaz. And I know what you're thinking, Gazgul Thraka? You named him after Gazgul Thraka? No, I didn't. I did name it after Gazgul Thraka. You're wrong. I named him after Gaz Bag of the Bloodsun Brothers? The Bloodsun Brothers. Where is Gaz? I have him somewhere. Over here. There he is. Can I get this to show up on camera? Will it focus? Will that... this way? This way. No, okay, well, I'm trying here. This is as good as it's gonna get. I have the, it's really hard because there's such a delay on the camera. There we go, that's good enough. So this is Grumlock, and Gaz is the little goblin on his shoulder. So this is from the Warhammer Age of Reckoning Collector's Edition. Everyone who's watched my channel at all knows I was a big fan of Warhammer Age of Reckoning, hence why a lot of my popular videos are memes created from the trailers of that. So I have the collector's edition of the game. It is in the other room behind that door. I would love to somehow digitize my collector's edition in a way to make it more accessible to people, and like do a stream where we like look at the art from it, or do something where like I maybe hire some voice actors or something and do the comic book. But it has really glossy pages, and the really glossy texture of the pages makes it really hard to like take photos of it and scan it. So I haven't found a method yet that works. But that's a goal of mine. That's something I really would like to do in the future. I think it would be really cool if I could like collaborate with some other like YouTube Warhammer creators to like do the voice acting, and we could like, yeah, I think it'd be a really cool time. But maybe one day we'll get something like that going. Unfortunately, I can't find a really high res PDF of it or a high res version of it anywhere. And if I did, I would have already made the video. So if someone stumbles across it, please send it my way. My email's on my YouTube channel. You can just email it to me. Okay, getting back on topic. But Gazbag is the Night Goblin who, with Grumlock, unified the Orcs in the Age of Reckoning game. And the unified Orcs join with Chaos. It's kind of supposed to be Chaos Undivided, but it's really Tzeentch themed, so I think it's Chaoses of Tzeentch. Like the Magus is there, and they can summon like blue and pink horrors. You know, there's Disses Tzeentch and things like that. The Chosen are kind of supposed to, I guess, be undivided. And the trailer definitely, like the trailer I showed, the last video that came out with the Chaos Warrior, or sorry, the Chosen, just absolutely destroying that Warrior Priest. It looks very undivided in his armor, but then when you play the game, it's very Tzeentch inspired, so I'm not really sure if it was supposed to be Tzeentch or not. And then obviously the last one's the Dark Elves, and they're fighting against the High Elves, the Humans, the Empire, and the Dwarves. So Gaz is shortened for Gazbag. He's just gonna be this little goblin who enchants, uses his magic to help people. I played a goblin shaman in the MMO, so I'm kind of bringing that energy to my campaign. I think it'll be really fun, really cool. And yeah, so how did I tie night goblins into the world? Well, it was a lot easier than I thought. I had to make some concessions, right? Goblins are a lot more chaotic and not super organized in the lore of Pathfinder. And you're like, well, they're not very organized or militaristic. Well, they're very militaristic, but they're not super organized in this, so that makes sense. Well, because they're not super organized, there's not like a ton of like factions. So I had to use hobgoblins as the basis, and I know that's sacrilege, and you could very easily use goblins and say it's a goblin who got like a goblin clan that kind of got roped in with the hobgoblins, but using the hobgoblin Oprak is the name of the city. Actually, let me just chuck you on camera real quick while I pull up the wiki page for Oprak. We'll just do this. I'll just open a few wiki pages and we'll just look through some wikis. You guys can see some stuff and not just look at my stupid face. Sure. We'll do that one. Let me organize these real quick. Night Goblins, Oprak, mine. Oh, we need a Hobgoblin one. Luckily, I have the inspiration section of my character sheet with links, so that's pretty easy. We'll throw Scar Snake in there too. We'll talk about Scar Snake if we have time. Okay, we'll full screen this. And then we'll switch back over to desktop. Boom, here we are. Make sure it shows up in the stream. Beautiful. We'll probably need to make this a little bigger for you guys. 125. Well, that should be enough. You should be able to read it just fine. So Night Goblins, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Night Goblins are a sub-race of goblins in the Warhammer Fantasy universe. The reason they are called Night Goblins is because they are a subterranean group of goblins. What does that mean? Well, because they're a subterranean group of goblins, eventually years and years of living in the darkness and the like tunnels and caves and things like that has made it where they can't tolerate sunlight. So they wear these cloaks, as you can see here in this artwork. They wear these robes to kind of cover themselves up so they don't get blasted by the light. And even the light of the moon itself is often enough to like cause them pain and discomfort, hurt their eyes and things like that. So they don't usually come out during the day, hence why they come out at night and they're called Night Goblins. Additionally, there's the Moon Clan ones, and the Moon Clan Night Goblins worship the bad moon, but we'll get into that later. Basically, they're these awful little horrible gits who sneak around, and they have some great models. Let's look up Gloomspite Gits. Models, miniatures, minis. We'll pull some of these bad boys up. I mean, they got some. Oh man, the Mangler Squig is my favorite. It's my favorite model in the entire game. I mean, just look at that. Look at that model. I mean, they have these giant mushroom doggies called squigs. Goblins are mushrooms as well. If you haven't seen my Goblins video, yep, beautiful, beautiful boys. Look at them. They also have ones called Fanatics. Fanatics are also a favorite of mine. Type in Fanatics real quick. Here we go. Fanatics use these giant... Oh, God. There we go. They use these giant balls on chains, and they just spin around in circles, and they just obliterate things until they get sick and throw up. And they eat mushrooms. They make beer out of mushrooms. They are mushrooms. They get drunk. And, you know, they get so drunk that they become fanatical. And then you can just chuck them into the enemy lines and watch them spin to win, baby. And, you know, goblins are famous for attrition, high attrition, combat, things like that. Awful little gits. So I love them. I decided to do more of a goblin shaman. You could have done a goblin warrior, and I think you could have really good fun time with that. But I tend to play a caster just because I enjoy the caster role. But if you want to play a goblin fighter, by all means, go ahead and play a goblin or like martial class. In fact, martial classes are considered better in general in Pathfinder. While, you know, typically martial classes don't do very well in D&D, but they've done a really good job at making martial classes really strong in Pathfinder. They're the best single target damage. They're really good. And the casters kind of are more support primarily, which is, again, what I tend to play is support. So it doesn't affect me at all. But if you're used to playing like a really blasty wizard or really blasty character, you might be a little disappointed. But I tied them to Oprak. What is Oprak? Well, Oprak is a nation. Can you read this? Yeah, you can read it. Oprak is a nation located in the Mindspin Mountains. We'll get to that in a second. And it's a little goblin-run monster city. And you might be thinking, well, that sounds lovely. But it's not. It's not lovely. I think this Wikipedia page paints it in a very positive light. But basically, the hobgoblins are super militaristic. The Azerisi, or however the fuck you say that, the person in charge of the Iron Fan Legion, we'll just do that. Iron Fan Legion, right? She's like a ruthless dictator. They use the same ruthlessness and order to in their workforce now. So it's like all the propaganda we used to hear about, like the Soviet Union, of making like people work and giving them meth to make them work more and crap like that. But that's what this is. But why I picked this one is she fights the dwarves. Goblins famously don't like the dwarves. It's a match made in heaven. So what I ended up doing is I was like, okay, well, within the Mind Spine Mountains, we'll just say that the Night Goblins exist. They're there. They exist in the Night Spine Goblins, or the Mind Spine Mountains. And you're like, okay, well, why the Mind Spine Mountains? Well, it's because of what else is there, right? There's ogres there. There's trolls there. Famously, ogres and trolls work with goblins. The Broken Spine Orc tribe is there. Again, orcs famously work with goblins. So there we go. And then the other thing, I think there's drakes there somewhere. The drakes, obviously, could. Sure, why not? You know what I mean? Why not? We could chuck them in there. But dwarves are there too. The dwarves are always mining, and they're trappers, and they have settlements in the area, and they're like trying to expand their influence in the mountains, because guess what? It's their old ancestral home. Where have we seen that before? Carrot Cake Peaks, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it just writes itself at this point, right? You go, okay, I'm just going to be like a night goblin. I'm just going to steal the lore from like Scarsnake of, you know, King of Eight Peaks fighting with the dwarves for their ancestral home. I have the orcs in nearby areas and abandoned settlements that could be friends with me for various points in history. You could be like, oh, you know, the Blood Suns existed and they were an ally between the Night Goblin and the modern day Broken Spine orcs. I mean, you could literally just take Warhammer lore, famous Warhammer characters, alter them slightly to say the events occurred in the Mind Spin Mountains, and it would make sense most of the time, which is really convenient. Isn't there a little like there's a little map somewhere? I see the little map. Maybe that was a different page. Basically, there's also humans around, and there's also, I think these are elves. I mean, trees. Trees look like elves. I don't know. I have no idea. But super easy. It really matches a lot of Scarsnake's lore. Boom, we're good. You can just say either you're a hobgoblin race, or a bunch of night goblins, or part of hobgoblins, and they're part of this lady's legion. They were like a sub-faction within the legion, and that were from the Mind Spine, and they aided in, you know, fighting the dwarves, which is what I ended up doing. I ended up just saying it was a hobgoblin just because it's easier. You could just say it was a goblin, but the issue with saying that it's a goblin is hobgoblins hate goblins. They don't hate goblins. They see them as inferior, so they're probably going to enslave them. You could say your people was enslaved, if you want to go that route, and be like, okay, the hobgoblins enslaved by people. Obviously, these people are known. Like, Oprak is known for its alchemy. Night goblins make fungus beer and make fungus potions. Really obvious tie-in there. That's the angle I went with. That, you know, they enslaved the goblins to try and force them to work as alchemists. They used them, they allied with them for a temporary truce, basically, to fight with the dwarves. The goblins hate the dwarves, so they were down with it. They thought they were going to chase them out of their ancestral home and be, you know, be able to like own Carrot Cake Peaks or the equivalent of it. But then the hobgoblins, after losing the war because they were fighting on too many fronts simultaneously, backstabbed you, made a little, basically took over your lands, was trying to force all the goblins into slavery to get their alchemy business going, and, you know, for more laborers. And my character and a few other night goblins got away, and we were traveling to the area where the campaign that we're playing is taking place. We're playing a pretty far away area from the Mind Spine Mountains, so I made it where my character was younger. Probably it would have been generations since they left, but they're a refugee kind of clan of goblins that are moving place to place, trying to reestablish their clan and their culture, and, you know, kind of start anew somewhere else. It's kind of the angle I went with it. But again, super easy to tie this in to hobgoblins, tie them into Oprak if you're doing the night goblin thing, because the alchemy could be the tie-in, the fungal potions, super easy. So if you wanted to do still the moon clan, right, which is the idea of the bad moon leading to the end times, Grodius, there's a god of end times, it's chaotic neutral, that is a giant skull moon. And it's going to bring on the apocalypse. And its worshippers do nothing but rave about the end of the world. And it's almost exactly the bad moon lore. Pathfinder was inspired by people who took other systems and really liked them and kind of adapted a lot of inspiration from different places. But let's be honest, right? It's not like Warhammer's original. A lot of Warhammer is probably borrowed from somewhere else too, right? So, but you can find a lot of the stuff you see in Warhammer and Pathfinder very easily, very rapidly. So, there you go. I chose a wizard. You could do a straight alchemist. I want to play a wizard with an alchemist focus because I want to play more of a shamanistic kind of character. There are witches. Witches would be another really good option. I have no reason why not pick a witch. Witches are a good option. I got nothing to complain about. I picked wizard just because I wanted to play a wizard, but you know, do you. You also do like cleric, and you could do cleric to this guy and really lean into more of the moon goblin kind of thing, doomsayer kind of situation. If you want to do that, that's a really good option. Let's talk about Scarsnake. Why? Because why not? So for those of you who aren't familiar with Scarsnake, they're in the Total War games. It's a DLC character, and it's one of the hardest campaigns, I'm pretty sure, in the first game, so a lot of people haven't played it for obvious reasons. But basically, Scarsnake is a goblin, night goblin, who very famously took 8 Peaks. 8 Peaks is a giant dwarven, like, historical capital. And the way he did that was through scheming and intellect. He's like a smaller than the average goblin, scrawny, so not like big and strong, which, you know, in the culture, the greenskin culture, typically the biggest and the strongest lead, right? So having someone using logic and cunning, being a strategist, is pretty rare for goblins, and to be so good at it that they ended up uniting a bunch of different groups, and I think even with the orcs, right? Maybe not. I don't remember. I don't remember if he gets access to orcs or not in the lore. Basically, he fucks up the dwarves big time. He has a giant squig called Gobla, who's awesome. There's a book about him if you want to read it. I don't know if it's any good. I haven't read it. But, yeah. Scarsnake, the long and the short of it, is he is the guy from Total War. And he takes over 8 Peaks. And yeah, he's just a smart guy. So Scarsnake was a big inspiration for the character. Additionally, like 40k orcs, I know a lot more about probably 40k orcs than I do about fantasy goblins. So characters like the Red Gobbo, I kind of want to incorporate into it because we're playing a good campaign, right? So I can't be an evil character. So I was thinking more of doing the the goblins, the hobgoblins rising up, kind of the goblin rebellion army. There's some great, let's see if we can find some goblin 3k army. There's a great conversion someone did of the guard. Maybe let's do the red goblin. Sure, here we go. Yeah, the Red Gobbo. So you could do like, they have like very communistic vibes, obviously. You know, seize the means of production. You know what I mean? We, the goblins, are sick of our labor, or our alchemy labor, being seized by the hobgoblins for their profit. And we want to rise up and seize the means of production. You know what I mean? Fellow comrades? But, yeah. Basically, tying that into the world. I think I've gotten that across enough. We talked about Scar Snake, we talked about that, we talked about that. Oprak. I kind of want to show off something I have for it. Boop. Oh, that's the art I already had. So, in addition to me creating this character, I wanted to create a familiar. I wanted to use a familiar, and I found this incredible artwork. Who is this by? Posted by Amy Brown. Yeah, but who made Xavier Collette? So Xavier Collette made this incredible series of animals made of mushrooms. And I know what you're thinking. You could have done a squig, and I could have done a squig, but I'm doing a familiar, not an animal companion, and the familiars are tiny size opposed to an animal companion, which is, I think, medium. So I thought these little guys made more sense. So we're just gonna show them off. Now, in Pathfinder, something that I think is really cool is instead of having a different action system, different sets of actions like D&D does, the way it works is you just have 3 actions that you can use for a variety of different things. So instead of having like a move action and a main action, right, and then a bonus action, you just have 3 actions. This is the one I'm going to use for my familiar. I love the little chunky boy. Instead of that, you just have 3 actions. You can use one of your actions to move. You can use one of your actions to do an attack. You can use one of your actions to move again or interact with an object or whatever you want. The sky is the limit. You have 3 actions. Use them how you want. And yeah, that's dope because it gives you a lot more freedom. There's no such thing as concentration. So if you want to sustain a spell that says sustain on it, which is the equivalent of concentration in the game, you use an action to sustain the spell. So you, in theory, could have 3 spells activated at the same time, and then you'd be sustaining all 3. And that would be your entire turn. Now, in reality, it's very, very unlikely that you'll be able to have 3 sustain spells going at the same time. Nor would it be tactically sound, probably, for you to do that, because then you'll have no actions to, like, move, or to, like, get behind cover, or do you use shield, or, you know, any sort of defensive things or anything like that. So you probably wouldn't do that, but that, in theory, you could. It's very possible to have 2 sustain spells available at one time, because you have 3 actions, and usually spells cost 2 actions to cast. Sustain, cast a second spell, sustain, sustain. Third one is, you know, for survivability, whatever you want to do for survivability. But yeah, and then the way the familiar system works is just like everything else. You get options, you get choices, you get to pick. And the way it does it is you have familiar feats, and you get 2 familiar feats, and they can either be from your class, or there's a list of generic ones that are for the animal. And usually the class ones are like things that would empower you, the player, and the general ones are like abilities that you would give to the familiar. So you can choose to do things like make your familiar be really useful, or have your familiar give you things like extra cantrips, or, you know, an extra spell, or something like that. Personally, I'm going to focus more on making my familiar good at things, because I would rather have a familiar that I can use for out of combat kind of situations. But if you want to just focus on combat and give yourself more cantrips or more spells, then by all means go ahead and do that. What time is it? 8:19. My good, I've been talking for... It's getting to my throat. Alright, let me just look at my character history real quick. Oh, right. That's That's a good point. I'll talk about that. Okay. So I made this little sheet. It has my character build and spells and things I want to take. I'm not going to show you all of it because no one has commented anything about Pathfinder yet, so I don't think we have like an expert that's going to be able to give me help building my character. And I don't want people like after the fact seeing this video like 2 weeks later and being like your build's garbage. So we just won't cross the roll. Yeah, sure, we'll talk about. So this lady, the lady that's in charge of this place, Oprak, the leader of the Iron Fang, she has this thing called the, can we like click on her? Beautiful. Wow, look at that beautiful woman. Lawful evil, just like the way I like them. She has this magical like key thing that lets her like create tunnels in the earth. Very night goblin-y, right? Because obviously they live in the underground. They use the underground to get around. She has a key that lets them move underground, but she got that key from the orcs. She stole it from a vault that not the orcs, the dwarves had. She stole it from the dwarves, and then she got it from a vault the dwarves had. So I had the lore kind of tying my clan, my Crooked Moon clan, into the Iron Fang Legion, was that they aided in stealing that from it, and then they also assisted in the coming war and the assault on the dwarven cities and strongholds. And then this attack of the Iron Fang Legion was a module. I don't know if it was in first edition or second edition, but it was a campaign you could play. And at the end of the campaign, the players obviously win and they drive the Iron Fang Legion back, and then they develop the city of Oprak as kind of like a nation for monsters, and then start using their aggressive kind of military discipline and enslavement of all these people from the war to try and get their economy going and get all that going. So it's very easy to be like, okay, well, I have a clan that's from the Mindspine Mountains. They are the Night Goblins. Like, just steal the Warhammer Night Goblins lore, say that's them. They assisted using the tunnel system that they know about and the cave systems and stuff within the Mindspin Mountains to get into the vault the dwarves had. After they got to that vault and the lady got the key, you know, she caused that big war. You can either have them probably assist in the war, right? They were still helping them, so they probably didn't enslave them right away because they were good fighters using the tactics Night Goblins use. And then after the war wasn't working out great and they tried to pivot into their aggressive economic focus, that's when they would force the Night Goblins into slavery to use them in the mines because of their knowledge of tunnels and caves. Additionally, they're great with alchemy, so they would probably try to force them into becoming alchemists. And Oprak is really known for their alchemy. So that is a very logical tie-in. It's really easy, really good. I think we've talked enough about Pathfinder 2nd Edition at this point in time, unless someone wants to say they want more Pathfinder 2nd Edition in the chat. Double check. Nope. And nope. Okay. Next topic. Okay, another game I've been playing, another tabletop game that I want to kind of show off. Do I have it as a separate? I do have it as a separate Chrome. We'll close this. We'll full screen this. Is Monster of the Week. What is Monster of the Week? Monster of the Week is a modern day horror-inspired tabletop RPG game. I've been playing Monster of the Week for 3 sessions now. And I've had a blast with it. I play a mundane. And what is a mundane? Well, a mundane's a normal guy. So this is my character sheet. I have it printed out and pen and paper, and that's what I use for the game. But I just quickly check the boxes because these character sheets are super quick and easy to use, so that you guys could see an example. So Monster of the Week is really good. It's really fun. It's really simple to play. Great for new players who've never done tabletop RPGs again. It being modern day. way easier probably for them to get into because they know the real world because they live in it. They have a series of Monster of the, or sorry, it's of the Week. Of the Week is the name of the series, and then the first word dictates what genre it is. So Monster of the Week is a horror game. I think they have like something like Castle. They have a few of them. I mean, we could just look it up. The Week TTRPG. Evil Hat Productions. Yeah, okay. Evil Hat Production games. Oh, they did Fate. Thirsty Swords of Lesbians. Yeah. Tome of Mystery, Monster of the Week. Yeah, they make a bunch of games. Band of Blade. I've heard of Fate. I've seen Fate played before. I've heard of Thirsty Sword Lesbians. I've not played Thirsty Sword Lesbians. And I've, of course, played Monster of the Week. So, Monster of the Week is their horror game. It's really simple to fill out. I'm pretty sure all the games they make are pretty easy and simple to fill out. Fate was also very easy and simple to fill out. You can play a bunch of different classes. For example, in our party, we have an angel. We have a like a witch, someone that can cast magic. We have a member of a cult that can do culty magic. We have an expert who's kind of like a like the weird guy who can build all sorts of like contraptions kind of deal. We have someone that's like half monster. They can turn into ghosts and stuff. They're half ghost, but you could be half werewolf or whatever else. But of course, everyone seems really magical and cool. So someone has to be the foil, right? Someone has to be the average person. So that's who I'm playing. I'm playing the average person. Your group might or may not have an average person, but I think having an average person really kind of personifies, or shows off how cool and different the other characters are, and also acts as a grounding element. So like Tom doesn't believe in the occult and magic and all that at the beginning of the game and thinks it's all a bit absurd and ridiculous. And I think having that equivalent, someone to kind of be like, yeah, this stuff is weird. This stuff is not normal, and what's going on is crazy, and you guys are weird and not normal and crazy, is good. I think it's good. I think it leads to some interesting moments. I think having the mundane is really fun because a lot of the mundane's abilities kind of lets you like be a damsel in distress. Kind of makes it where you being putting yourself into danger just for the plot is kind of like what you're supposed to do. And I think it's really fun because you're like, in a way, you're like the really hot girl that goes and has sex in the bushes in the horror movie and like gets murdered. Like, you're the person that, like when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, don't open that door. You get to be that person. You get to be the one that opens the door and like is certainly going to die. And that's hilarious. It's fun. And like just watching how the other players have to like get you out of the situation is really funny and hilarious. But it's also good because like it lets you kind of like push the plot forward, because a lot of the, I don't know, maybe not every group's like this, but my group, a lot of the players are a lot more like reserved and they don't want to like dive into the adventure. And it's usually pretty obvious to me that the keeper is what they call the dungeon master in this game. The keeper is trying to forward the plot and is like really heavily hinting for us to do something. And it's really nice just like to stumble into the trap or into the encounter, and for me to get things for doing that I can use to benefit the party. And I'm incentivized to do that. And at first they were, I think when they didn't realize how my character worked, at first they were a bit annoyed. But after the first time someone saved me and they got hit and took damage, and then I used this fantastic ability called What Could Go Wrong, is whenever I basically wander into immediate danger, I can like reduce the damage someone takes by 1. So this person was wearing armor and they got hit and they took 2 damage. So 1 was negated by the armor and then I negated the other one. And then it's like, oh, me going in and saving him made it where no one took damage. If I would have went in first right? If the guy in the armor and the sword would have went in first, they certainly would have gotten hit as well, but because I was there, they took less damage. So it's little things like that that, like, yes, in a way, are you kind of trolling your players by purposely putting yourself in danger and, like, Mr. Magooing your way out of it? Yes. Is it hilarious? Absolutely. Does it freak them out? Immensely. Do I love playing a mundane because I get to watch my fellow players, like, be like, how the hell is this guy not dead yet? He's constantly putting himself in incredible harm's way, and somehow it's working out for everybody. It is fantastic. Unfortunately, they've kind of caught on at this point, so I don't get that like look of panic in their eyes anymore when I do something like that. But me and the keeper have a good laugh regardless. Some other great abilities. This character is leveled up once. You can only pick 3 mundane abilities at first level. Obviously, I have 4 checked here, but my character is progressed once. Basically, the way you level up is you check these boxes every time you roll too low and or something tells you to mark a checkbox. A really common way that I give out experience to people is these are your basic moves that you can do every time. And one of them is called Manipulate Someone. I have a pretty hard charm being a mundane person, so I try to convince people to do things. And every time I convince them to do something and they choose to do it, they always have the option to choose to do it or not to do it. But if they choose to do what I ask them to do, then they get experience. So the mundane, it's great to have around because I decide I'm going to do something really dumb. People go, hey, I don't want to do that dumb thing because I'm not stupid like you are. And you go, hey, buddy, I will give you 1 additional XP if you come with me. And you know how players are. They want to get that extra XP. Of course they want to get the extra XP. So they come and you always go on a little buddy adventure together. And usually it involves someone being eaten or something awful happening. And yeah, it's, you know, it's a great time. But everyone has access to these basic moves. Depending on your build, you might use some more than others. Obviously, I don't really use the attack one at all. It kicks some ass. I really don't use act under pressure. Actually, we've not had that roll act under pressure for my character yet. The keeper decides if you need to or not. I have some buffs to that though. Help out is another really good one. Assisting players. The mundane has a great ability that makes it where whenever someone's fighting somebody, you can just choose to give them a +1. Just by default. Like, hey, you came in to save me, and you're fighting a monster to try and save me? Well, guess what? I'm making you better at fighting that monster. So if it's someone who's built already for fighting someone, they're probably going to have a 2 in the stat, at least. Plus you're giving them a +1. That's +3 to the stat. They only need to get, what, a 7? You roll 2d6. Average 2d6 is a 6, right? Lowest roll possible is a 2. If they have a +3, they're at least going to get a 5. That's pretty good because they only need a 7. If they've leveled up, added some toughness, they only need to roll a 1 and a 2. It makes things way more consistent. You just being there and helping out is great. Additionally, using your 2 what could go wrong so you can inflict additional damage. Personally, I don't like to do that. I don't like to use mine to increase damage. I would rather use mine to either give someone a +2 on their roll because they have abilities and things that would probably be more beneficial. And the other one of reducing harm is really good because obviously if someone's dying, it's not great. I'm playing a support character. I'm trying to make sure they don't die. We've gone over what could go wrong. We've gone over the power of the heart. Let's talk about this one. Oops. Oops is hilarious. So we were playing a possession game, and my character oops and found a doll. And as you can imagine, there's spooky stuff going on. We're like in a haunted, insane asylum kind of deal. No, it was an abandoned orphanage. We were in an abandoned orphanage, and there's spooky stuff going on. Like there was a bunch of children found there that were like drinking and partying, and their like eyes were blacked over, and they were like catatonic and not responding. And for whatever reason, our gang of Scooby-Doo-esque mystery machine lovers wander onto the scene. And my character just like, oops, find something that's important. So it's just like my character finds a creepy doll on the ground. And they're all like, none of them are with me because, I have to go off on myself every once in a while to freak them out. They're all wigging out because all of a sudden the only guy there that doesn't know what's going on, who doesn't believe in ghosts, even though we're like in a ghost story. The only guy who's like normal and isn't like a weirdo that has powers, suddenly comes back to the group with some creepy doll, and they're like freaking out, and it's hilarious. I love things like that. I love like little moments like that, and just like watching the other players and how they respond to it. And my keeper knows that like I really love the improvisational things, so they can just throw something at me and give me a little note, and I will ride with it. I will go with it, and I will have fun with it, and it'll be great. I haven't got to try my new ability out yet, Panic Button. I think it'll be really fun though. Basically, at any point in time, I can create a way of getting out of a situation. I imagine that'll be very useful because I often put us in very dangerous situations. So having the ability to get us back out is important, I think, as well. Because sometimes I'm gonna stumble into a problem that isn't solvable with the resources we have at hand, or we are certainly going to die. So being able to give them a reliable way out once I force them into immediate danger, being able to get them a way out of immediate danger is important. I'm going to talk a bit more about the base options in case you're interested in playing this game. In general, there's kind of 3 things I've noticed that people either focus on. It's either like kind of, 4. We'll just go back to the stats. So either people focus on weird, and either they have a class that gives them access to some like cool magical abilities, or they use these, which are, let me zoom in for you all, alternative weird moves. So if you don't have magic, some DMs will let you use these. Some keepers will let you use these instead. My keeper is super dope and let me pick one as a mundane, so I picked Trust Your Gut because it just makes sense that I would wander into danger. And the beauty of Trust Your Gut for me is that if I miss, I get an experience, and I am led to immediate danger. I'm led into danger, right? Well, guess who gets abilities if he's led into danger? I get abilities if I get led into danger. As soon as I go into immediate danger, I get 2 little tokens that I can use to do one of these 3 abilities. Not only that, but often if I'm wandering into danger, if I'm wandering into the monster, that's probably forwarding the plot. So this with the mundane is incredible. I think it's great all around. Additionally, you can take any of these other ones. You can pick any one that you want. Personally, I don't know what all of these do because, again, I only use the one. But if you want to just be like a weird little telekinetic person or whatever, go nuts. Everyone has access to these though, and you don't need keeper permission. But if you do a tough thing, you're mainly gonna be fighting people. You really only ever want to protect someone as a last effort. It's not ideal. You don't want to be doing it often. It's not great. I'll probably take that thing that lets me do it because I can basically use it to split damage between myself and another person, which is handy if my tank is taking a lot of hits, and if I get lucky, I can reduce the damage. I haven't decided if I want to do that or not yet. I might not. It depends if I can find some armor in game. Because you can split damage between multiple people and both people have armor on, then you're really lowering the damage pretty significantly. If you're doing a sharp's pretty cool because you get to ask these questions. Depending on how well you roll, you can ask, basically these different questions, and you get that information from your keeper or your dungeon master. And it's a really good play style. I kind of need to start using my sharp abilities more. I tend to forget about them and just kind of focus on using Trust My Gut and Charm, manipulate a person. But it would behoove me to definitely use Read a Bad Situation more, and additionally to Investigate a Mystery way more. Use magic. Like I said, if you have access to magic, you can do some magic. I don't have any magic, so I don't do magic. Big magic is more magic. Recovery, we haven't had... I haven't taken any damage ever, so I haven't actually had to worry about recovery. Luck. Basically, if you really need to pass a roll, you can spend a luck point and pass it, but you only have so many luck, and I'm pretty sure once you run out of luck, you die. Mark luck to change a roll to 12 or avoid all harm from an injury. Yeah, so it's good, but you can only use it so many times. You can get one back every time you level up, or not every time you level up, but you can choose as an improvement. At least I can. Oh, that's what I meant to click. Take a move from another playbook. I can steal other people's moves. That's pretty dope. I actually have to read the other playbooks to figure out if I want to do that or not, though. But you can choose to get more playbook, or sorry, luck points, or just boost a stat, get a new ability. This is your level up, and once you've leveled up 5 times, you can get some of this. I don't think my character is ever going to level up 5 times just because I think I'll die before that occurs. But who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky. I think that's all I have for Monster of the Week. I was really hoping we'd get a little bit more chat going, a little more conversation going, so that we could have, I could talk about these things more. But unfortunately, the only person we got, can't read their language. They really did try to interact though, and I feel bad that I couldn't read them. But oh well. It is what it is. I'm not all-knowing. It's not possible for me to know every language that's ever existed. I can barely speak English. So, you know what I mean? I hope that person got what they were looking for, though. I might try to translate it after the stream, but I don't know if I want to know what they were saying. Let's see, it's only 9 o'clock. I usually stream until 9:30. I don't want to start a new game now, because if I start a new game now, then obviously I think I'd rather just start the new game at the beginning of the next stream. Yeah, we'll do that. All right, hello. If you're tuning into the stream, you've missed all the really good scheduled content, and now we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. So if you have something that you would like to chat about, I would appreciate it, because I'm running out of content fast. It is what it is. I guess I could put on some of my other videos, and we could watch some of those together. I don't think I've done any of those for my meme videos, and I could maybe describe how I made them or why I made them the way I did. That might be good. All right, let's put this back on. Boom. Okay. So I'm playing a wizard in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is the wizard class. I'm just gonna quickly scroll down to the progression system. So in Pathfinder, the reason why I like it more than 5th edition, Pathfinder 1st edition is what I played historically. I haven't played 2nd edition yet. I have my game next week, right after the stream. Well, the day after the stream. So I can give you guys an update 2 weeks from now. But this is how the level up system works. So Ancestry's your race, right? So you get a race feat, you get a background. Your background has a feat usually tied to it. That's usually a skill feat. You get your initial proficiencies, your skills and whatnots. You get whatever your class things you get at first level, and you get a class feat. So you get a wizard feat. So at first level, you have to not only pick your class, you have to pick your ancestry/race, whichever you prefer. It's called ancestry in this game, but it's often called race. You have to pick your background, and then once you've picked your class, you often will have to pick class-specific options, including a feat in that class. And if you're brand new to tabletop RPGs, you're thinking, that's a lot. I don't want to have to make all these decisions. This is awful. But if you've played tabletop RPGs for a little bit, like 5th edition, and you kind of feel like, hey, I've played this game quite a bit. I kind of feel like all my characters are becoming kind of samey, because maybe you enjoy a specific role, maybe you enjoy a specific style of character, right? Say you just like full casters, right? How many full casters are there in 5th edition? You got bards, you got clerics, you got druid, you got sorcerer, wizard. That's it. You got 5, right? And you're like, well, there's subclasses, but often the subclasses don't radically change your play style. You know what I mean? Like, I've played a lot of clerics, and having a few extra spells from your spell domain is nice. Having some cleric abilities is nice, and having them, tie into your party well is really cool. I talked previously about order clerics and how I did a one-shot for some newer players, or with some newer players as an order cleric, and we had a fighter and a rogue in the party, and doing things like giving them reaction attacks for free whenever I cast like Bless or Healing Word on them, made them feel super powerful, and it was really cool for them. But I've been casting Bless every combat encounter at low level every time I play a cleric. It's not very different. And this game has so many classes. Let's just PF2 SRD classes. Not only that, most of the classes are free. You can just look at, all of these. You have all these options, right? All those options. And are all of them perfect? No. There are some issues with, because you have so many choices, especially in the feats, not all the feats are on par, right? So if you're playing a super difficult campaign, you're going to have to take some time and really understand that. For most part, you'll be fine. Like, all the core classes are pretty well done. I think they're all fairly well balanced. In general, martial classes tend to be a little stronger than casters. If you are trying to do like a damage build, if you're trying to do more of a support build, then you'll be fine. But just be aware of that. But you have all these different classes. They have their own kind of unique thing to them, but a lot of them are almost combinations of classes. For example, Wizard and Witch are very, very similar. You could make a wizard that feels like a witch, and you can make a witch that feels like a wizard. But mechanically, they're different enough where it's still kind of unique, still kind of different. So you could take a witch, you can have a familiar like a wizard, but you don't have to have a familiar if you don't want to as a wizard. You have to have a familiar as a witch. You can choose to use the arcane spell tree or arcane spell list if you're a witch, but you could also choose to do something else. You could choose to have occult, which is the bard one, is probably the easiest way to explain it. Like, kind of like a bardy list where it's a mix between healing and support. It's kind of a mix of all things. There's primal, which is druid, the druid traditional spell list, right? You can pick which one you have. So you can be like, oh, I played a wizard, I just played a wizard, I really like wizard, but maybe I'll play a witch this time. I still get a lot of what I like about wizard. It's very similar to wizard, but I can pick a completely different spell list. That's cool. You play a cleric, right? And there's two different forms of cleric. There's the battle cleric, which is more of the D&D cleric, where you have like medium or heavy armor. Or you could play the priest cleric, which is like a wizard again. You get more spells, but you get no armor. You're pretty squishy, but you are much more of a spell thrower opposed to the war priest, which is more of like a tankier kind of cleric. You just have a lot more options, a lot more freedom. You can play an alchemist, which is dope, which is a lot better than like, what is it, the artificer? Like, instead of having the artificer, you actually like have each version of the artificer split up into its own unique subclass. Like, you could play the artificer, or you can play an inventor, which is very similar, but you can also play an alchemist, which is a subclass of that. There's also a gun one, but I don't think the gun one's on the SRD. There are more than are listed on the SRD. This is just the ones available for free. But just using what's available for free, you very easily could make a great character. You very easily could have a good time with it and have a lot of fun. So I'm playing a wizard, and I'm just going to kind of show you how you can build a character pretty quickly. There's some decisions you have to make. For the wizard, obviously, you have to pick a spell school. I picked Enchanter because I'm doing more of a support and, you know, buff debuff kind of deal. So having my debuffs be, you know, additional spell slot just means that I have more options because I know I'm going to be using debuffs, so I might as well just specialize in it. And there's a lot of really cool spells I like in the Enchanter school. The next thing I had to pick was an Arcane Thesis, which are all these things with the brown. I picked Spell Blending because it lets me turn in lower level slots for a high level slot, and that just means I can get my big scary spell off more. That's pretty cool. Some people like to do it where instead of focusing on that, they do it where they take Universalist. So you have less spells prepared, but you can get that spell. You can kind of like mix up your spells easier because you get one of each spell slot back, and then they take a feat that makes it where every time you use your thing that lets you get a spell back, you can get an additional one the next turn that's 2 levels lower, and then you get these like chains where you like do these, what they call it, cascading cast, where you cast a really high level spell using your little thing, then the next turn you cast one that's 2 lower than that, and then that gives you another thing that's 2 lower, and then you can just go down the spell line, getting as many spells as you can. But the only downside with that is that uses all 3 of your actions, because you use 1 action to get your spell. Well, you get 1 action to get your spell back, your free spell. Then often most of the casting time is 2 actions, so then you can't do anything else, which is fine if you're like in a good position and you don't need to move and you don't need to use any like defensive abilities. But I would prefer to have the flexibility, and casting a bunch of spells each time being a little lower than the last one, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a really fun playstyle to me. But if you want to be like a wizard, if you're playing like a blast wizard, that's probably a ton of fun, because most of the spells I'm going to be casting are going to be like big debuffs and like AoE sustainment effects. So me slinging out a bunch of extra spells probably wouldn't benefit me as much as it would benefit someone that's trying to do more of a blasty character. If you're trying to do like AoE blast, that probably would be a lot of fun to try and do. But that's just not how I like to play. But if you're planning on doing that, maybe, you know, maybe consider that play style. But once you do that, you get to, let's just scroll down to Wizard Feats. Arcane Schools, we're not going to talk about those. So basically, these feats, they have a level requirement. You can always go back and take feats from an earlier level. You don't have to choose to take them when they are, unless they say special that you do. So some feats do say that you explicitly have to take it at a certain level. For example, I'm taking the Familiar first level feat, but then when we get to the second level, instead of taking any of these, you can take a Dedication. And a Dedication is basically like a subclass. It gives you instead of taking levels outside of your primary class, instead you just steal your feats and you put them into a secondary class. So because my character is inspired by the Gloomspite Goblins and alchemy, Fungal Brew is a big part of their culture, I'm going to use my second level to take up Alchemist Dedication. And what Alchemist Dedication lets me do is I have access to the alchemy abilities and the Alchemist class abilities. So let's go ahead and look at the Alchemist. This is unnecessarily complicated, so I think I'm going to skip this for now. But basically, if you want to play 2 classes, or if you want to get the abilities of one class and another class, there are ways of going about it. So just keep that in mind. Is there like a dedication bit? No. Is there like a dedication thing? Archetypes, maybe? Alchemist archetype? Is that what I'm thinking of? Yep. Okay. So they call them archetypes, sorry. Basically, they let you multiclass. And you can do things like, instead of taking your class feat, you can pick a dedication, But the thing is once you pick a dedication, you can't switch to another dedication until you've gotten 2 other feats from this archetype. So you can get 2 or 3 if you wanted to, because you get a class feat every 2 levels. But it's probably not worth the time to do that. You probably only want to take 1 or 2 dedications. And this stops you from just being like, oh, I want the alchemist one, and I want the wizard one, and I want the witch one, and it stops you from jumping around all these different places. It kind of forces you to invest a few levels. Basically, you'll be stuck with this archetype for 6 levels, and then you can do spec out of it. Obviously, you don't have to use your next 6 class feats for this. You can space it out over time, which is what I'm doing. But if you're trying to get through the dedication as quickly as possible, you can do that. You probably, again, shouldn't do that, because doing that will make it where you probably aren't getting the best abilities from it. As you can see, if I do this at level 2, the Mastery Alchemy, which is the best thing that I get from that dedication, I can't grab that until level 12. So if I just, at 2, I grab something, 4, I grab something, 6, I grab something, then, you know, I can go back and still get this if I want to. But if I start a different dedication, you know, like, what is the point? You know, what is the point? Then I'm missing out on my wizard ones, and my wizard ones have some good ones, like Enhanced Familiar, which gives my familiar more abilities. Another really good one is Spell Penetration, because I'm going to be doing a lot of DC based spells, so making it where I can reduce their save against my spells by 1 is nice. Things like Advanced Spell School can give you some great additional abilities. The one for Enchanter, Dread Aura, is really good because it frightens creatures that were within a certain feet of you. By default, no save. They just, if they are too close to you, boom, they're frightened. Fantastic. I'll probably try and grab this one as soon as I can. Bond Conservation is the thing I was talking about earlier, where whenever you use your Drain Bonded item, the next turn, you can use an action to cast an additional spell that's 2 spell levels lower than the first spell you cast with Drain item. So that's how you can do the little cascading thing shenanigans. That's a class feature. So depending on how you want to play, if you want to do the shenanigans with the cascading spell slots, or if you depending on how you want to build your wizard, you're going to need some of these. So focusing too much on these archetypes and these dedication feats might not be the best idea. Unless you like have a really specific character in mind that you're trying to fit the narrative of. That's what I'm doing. I'm really trying to build my Gloomspite Gitz character, so even though it's probably not optimal, I'm probably not gonna be the best wizard ever. I'm gonna have a really flavorful character I'm happy with, and that's fine and that's good. I'm not playing with a group that's like trying to be super competitive, like best, most powerful build possible. We're a lot more casual with it. So they're cool with that, but depending on the tier play you're playing at, it might be different. You're playing with a group that's playing a super hard campaign, or maybe you're playing in a open kind of situation, like a society where you're like a Pathfinder society kind of deal, or like an Adventurers Guild kind of deal, where you don't really know who you're going to be playing with every week, so you don't have like a party that complements each other, so you kind of have to build like that. It is what it is. But it's 9 o'clock and I'm kind of just rambling to myself, yelling into the ether. I don't think there's been anything of any real value for a little while now, but yeah, if you stopped by, everyone's left, but if you did stop by, thank you. If you're watching the VOD of this, I probably won't post the full VOD of this.